through sorrow and your despair, with everything, with every breath, praise the Lord. Let everything, let every breath, praise the Lord. Let everything that has breath, praise the Lord. Let everything that has breath, praise the Lord. Let everything that has breath, praise the Lord. Let every breath, praise the When the night is so long, throw your hands you to can the sing sky. A new song. Wipe the tears when from your weak, eyes. He is strong. He can heal your wounded soul. Come restored inside.
Hi, friends. Well, another crazy week, and now here we are with another month, it seems, of shelter in place, and not even quite hitting the peak of this COVID-19 pandemic yet. Sounds like it could be mid-April, or who knows. That's the thing. That's the most difficult, at least for me, in all of this, is all of the unknowns. In one sense, I haven't a clue what to preach about this week. Along with government officials and health care professionals and everyone who's trying to manage and do the best for our public health and for the common good in many ways. They're making it up as they go, because this is an unprecedented crisis. And that's true for pastors and churches too. So on the one hand, I don't have a clue what to preach about. On the other hand, I know exactly what I need to preach about. This is Holy Week beginning today on Palm Sunday. Next Sunday, Easter Sunday, the day of resurrection. So we have some built-in themes, if you will. But if you think that clergy and religious leaders and, quote unquote, spiritual professionals, if there is such a thing, which there isn't, if they have any answers beyond what the answers that you are coming up with for yourself on how to make sense of all this, well, guess what? We don't have any special pipeline. At least we don't have any kind of pipeline that you also can't have to ultimate meaning and ultimate reality, to God, however you want to think about or name God. We're in trying to figure it out too as we go. We're just as befuddled, just as confused, just as anxious, just as worried. In the last couple of weeks, I've been talking a lot about worry and dealing with anxiety. And I'll tell you what, now they're saying we have to wear, or we should think about wearing facial protection when we go outside, go to the market, go to the grocery store, go to the gas station, whatever. So I'm gonna, try to figure out a way to do that and do it with a little professional aplomb. And I've got a lot of ideas how to do that, but it's like it doesn't. Maybe this will be better. I don't know. Just kind of wrap around and bring it down this way and through here. Maybe just a regular scarf, could tie it around this way and wrap it through, and that could work. Thought these straps, maybe that could, this would work. Come it. The God, I got this last winter when it was so cold. This really could work. Man, it's steaming me up. It's really hot. Jeez. Maybe I'll just scare people away. Or when you have that really large need to be in control. Yeah, there's a lot of days lately. Feel like those two guys in the fishing boat. Just kind of one unexpected crisis or one unexpected little change. One kind of lousy day after another.
Where is the moment we needed the most? You kick up the leaves and the magic is lost. Tell me your blue skies fade to gray. Tell me your passion's gone away. And I don't need no carrying on. You stand in the line just to hit a new low. You're faking a smile with the coffee to go. And tell me your life's been way offline. You fall into pieces every time. And I don't need no carrying on. Cause you had a bad day. You take it one down. You sing a sad song just to turn it around. You say you don't know. You tell me don't lie. You work on a smile and you go for a ride. You had a bad day. The camera don't lie. You're coming back down and you really don't You had a bad day, the camera don't lie. You're coming back down and you really don't mind. You had a bad day. Sometimes the system goes on the blink and the whole thing it turns out wrong. You might not make it back and you know that you could be, well, that's wrong. And I'm not wrong. So where was the passion when you needed the most? Oh, you and I, you kick up the leaves and the magic is lost. 'Cause you had a bad day, you're taking one down. You sing a sad song just to turn it around. You say you don't know, you tell me don't lie. You work on a smile and you go for a ride. You had a bad day, you see what you like. And how does it feel? One more time. You had a bad day. You had a bad day. Had a bad day.
So for my little sermon this week, I'm being a good citizen and doing this at home, controlling my urge to go over to the church and do it. I've been in and out of there, checking messages and whatnot, and trying to keep things rolling. But as much as possible, sheltering in place. Now, as we get into the sermon this week, that little slideshow you saw of all those little car accidents and stupid signs painted on the road and whatnot is a reminder that even in normal times, things can get wildly out of control. We forget that. We're in this time now in this pandemic when the whole world is feeling a little bit out of control. With every passing week, more measures, more strict restriction, more things in place to try and control the spread of this disease. And for the most part, social distancing and all these restrictions will certainly help, and it's our part to honor that as best we can. But it also is a reminder, perhaps there's no time in current history that any of us can remember where we kind of feel more out of control than we do right now. that's a good thing to ponder in this Holy Week, which begins, of course, today, Palm Sunday, and goes up until Holy Saturday. Next Sunday being Easter, the day of resurrection. I'm going to put it to you that the main story of Holy Week um, is about control. It's all about control. The powers that be, the socio-religious and political powers in first century Jerusalem, were all about control. And the story itself, if we're going to really understand why the crucifixion of Jesus happened and what it means for us today, we've got to put it in the context of what it meant then. And for the most part, it was all about control, controlling Jesus especially. On Palm Sunday, we have that marvelous story we hear where he rides into the city, and it's a protest. He's riding as a counter-protest to the great triumphal entries of Roman generals on their war horses and their triumphs. The parade, when a general won a big battle and came home, they had a big parade called a triumph, in which all the conquered slaves and all the animals and all the soldiers who fought in the battle are all lined up, and they march in, and then comes the general on his big chariot drawn by big powerful horses. And Jesus' procession coming into the city at a different gate than that normally happened in Jerusalem is on a donkey. He's making a statement. He's making a political and spiritual and religious statement, contradicting the powers of control and domination. And right away, the people want to control what's happening. And we can't hardly blame them. The common folks, they were at the mercy of the same control powers that were always making life miserable for them with taxation and restrictions and curfews, and the religious system with all its puritanical codes, and just trying to tell you how to live and what to be and what to do. The common folk didn't have a whole lot of say in anything. So their hope was for a new king, a Messiah, who would come in and set things right, give them back some power, give them back some control. So they wave those palm branches and they hail the son of David, David being, of course, a king, the greatest king Israel had known. But Jesus, of course, was not that kind of Messiah. He was a different kind. And Jesus' agenda for this week, the week we call Holy Week, was all about surrender. It was all about giving up control. And it's ironic because when we look at the story, we see that he was really the only one who was in control of anything. So what's one of the first things he does when he enters into the city? He goes into the temple, the seat of power and control in that time and place, right next to where the Roman legion was camped out in the Antonia fortress, the very seat of both religious and political power. He goes into the temple, and we have that story that's often called the cleansing of the temple, where he makes a whip of cords and he drives out the money changers and calls it a den of robbers. I don't have time to get into a lot of detail with that, but what I want us to remember is he wasn't cleansing the temple. He was ritually dismantling it. He was ritually destroying it. It was another powerful protest movement following on the heels of that triumphal entry, that little anti-parade, that anti-triumph with he on his donkey. The religious powers of the day, the Sanhedrin, the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders who lodged in the temple, that was their seat of power, were in collusion with the Romans. And that goes all the way back to King Herod. You see, Herod was a monarch who was kind of a dictator, but he was also a puppet of Rome in some ways, just like his sons would be after him. They always had to dance to the tune of the Roman Empire, which was reaching its peak of power about the time of Jesus' life. Herod had put into place a lot of his rich and wealthy friends. It was an oligarchy. Sound familiar? Where those who had power and means created the rules and situated things so that they could keep their power and expand their means. And if you didn't dance to Herod's tune, you were SOL. You found yourself cast out or ostracized or murdered, your property taken away. So a lot of those religious rulers were of that wealthier class. And Herod had in fact started putting into place the chief priests, which were supposed to ascend from Aaron, the brother of Moses, going back centuries. But the priesthood for decades had been bought and sold to the highest bidder, so to speak. And so there was a lot of buddy system between the religious authorities and the wealth and power of the empire. Of course, Rome was the empire who was really running the show. They had their issue of control in order to make sure the taxes, the tribute to Caesar was paid. It took a lot of money to maintain all those legions and build all those roads and those fancy Roman cities, many of which were built there in first century Judea. Now, the religious authorities were trying to control Jesus because they saw him as a threat to their, not just their livelihood, but to the peace. They were afraid that if things got out of hand, that the Romans would be forced to step in and put down a rebellion, which had happened before. So that's why we hear Caiaphas saying, better that one man to die than for the whole city. The Romans wanted control because, again, they wanted the taxes to keep flowing, and crucifixion was their primary way of maintaining, one of the primary ways of maintaining power and keeping the peace. It was a form of state execution, state terrorism. What's not commonly known is that the case of Jesus being taken down off the cross after he was crucified was unusual. For the most part, when you were put on a cross, and the Romans crucified thousands and thousands of people, when you were put on a cross, you were left there. You were left there to die, and then for your body to be decomposed, and for the animals to have at it, picking away. And many times along the roads entering a large city like Jerusalem, there would be many crosses hanging with dead bodies on them. You could not mistake the message. You mess with Rome, and this is what happens to you. So the religious authorities in the temple, the Roman government, signified, of course, by Pontius Pilate, the governor of Judea, were all about keeping law and order and keeping the peace. They thought they were in control, but they really weren't. Of course, the whole story comes to an end there in that famous scene of Jesus standing before Pontius Pilate and Pilate questioning him. The Last Supper's already happened in the upper room. You know, the story that we hear at the beginning of the scripture for today, where Jesus has them prepare the room for their Passover meal. And he's been betrayed by Judas. He's gone out to the garden and knelt and shown what the story really is all about. The one who has all the power gives it up. The one who knows that the only source of real control, of any real power, is with what Jesus calls his Father, Abba. And so he says, Father, not my will, but yours. And he finds himself arrested and standing before Pilate, who asked him if he is the king of the Jews. And he says, that's what you say. My kingdom is not of this world. Actually, Jesus' kingdom is inside each one of us. He says that in the Gospel of Luke. The kingdom of God is within you. And that's where our control lies. It's funny in this time of pandemic where we feel out of control of so many things, it should remind us, it should be obvious that we really don't have a whole lot of control as much as we like to think we do. If you live with somebody, or if you have pets in your home, you understand how as much as you try to organize things, as nicely organized as you have your closets and all your schedule planned out on your date planner and your calendars and all your bills, organized and paid off on time, and as much as we try to control everything, it doesn't take a lot for us to realize that we really don't have all that much control. Stuff happens, people happen, pet accidents happen on the carpet. We love our control, but it is one of our biggest enemies to realize that, well, we don't have that much of it. We don't want to hear that. We don't like that. We like being in control. We like understanding that we can keep things in order. And most of the small stuff we can. We can organize our lives and try to run it by a schedule and keep things organized and neat, and that's good. But it really is pretty much an illusion because it doesn't take much to blow it all out of the water. And now, in a time like we're living through, we realize just how illusory control can be. Jesus kneels there in Gethsemane, and you've seen those famous paintings where he's praying, he's leaning against a rock. And I call that the fulcrum of human history. He doesn't want to die. Father, let this cup pass from me, but nevertheless, your will be done, not mine. Jesus understands that the only way we really can have control in our lives is by letting God have the reins. And that sounds kind of simple. Sounds kind of simplistic even. But it's much deeper than it seems. You see, our ego likes to be in charge. Our mind likes to be in charge. But applying the best of those things and doing everything that we can in our power to keep life under control and keep things organized. Stuff happens. Sometimes nasty stuff, painful stuff, difficult stuff. And we find ourselves knocked off our feet. Well, the only way we can be deeply rooted enough to maintain any semblance of order, so to speak, is when we realize that surrender is the real act of faith, that death and resurrection are what it's all about. Jesus understands that there are worse things than death. He understands that losing control has nothing to do with maintaining a proper life. He understands that putting it in God's hands, being rooted and grounded in a greater, stronger reality, is the only thing that will help fulfill your purpose, fulfill your love, and make you the kind of person that God has made you to be, which is a kind and loving, self-giving person. Control, you see, is rooted in fear, basically. That's what it is. Think about that. Ponder that this week. And when you read those stories again, when we come to the stories of Good Friday, Maundy, Thursday, remember that the real place that happens is on Holy Saturday, the day of the tomb. All of their wishing, all those disciples, all those people that followed Jesus, their hopes and dreams were dashed. It felt like their world was turned completely upside down. It was utterly out of their control. And yet God redeemed it all. Control, you see, it's not ours. So this week, as you ponder the passion of Christ, and we spend all this time looking upon his suffering, remembering that suffering really is being trying to be in control, and we don't need to be. Letting God speak to us in the kingdom of the soul. As we go through the dealing with this epidemic, this pandemic, remember, this is a time when you can spend some quiet with God. You can search your own heart. You can look at your own life. You can see where are some places where I have this need to control, where maybe I don't need to be quite so fanatic about it. What can I give up to God? What can I give over? What of myself needs to be resurrected? We'll talk some more about this on Easter Sunday. But for now, I wish you a week of peace, of quiet, of being able to give up some of this anxiety and fear. It's a beautiful day today. I'm trying to get my camera to turn around so you can see my beautiful front yard. I don't know if you can or not. The people are out walking. And it's a gorgeous day. Resurrection happens whether we want it to or not. The key to participating in it is giving up our control and understanding that there are greater things in store for us than what we see in the current moment. So let us live in the moment and find some peace this week as you seek the upper room, as you kneel with Jesus in the garden, as you pray for yourself and for others in this holy week.
How precious is your heart, O God, righteous and true. Gaze on me with infinite tenderness. I surrender to you. Compassionate friend, Lord of my life, I will trust you, master of wind and raging tide. I will trust you through the stormy night. I will trust you, God of mercy and light. I will trust you, oh Lord, I will trust you. Oh merciful we praise you, magnificent Lord, merciful one. Cover us with your holy light, O God. Shelter us with your love. Shelter us with your love. Compassionate friend, Lord of our lives, we will trust you, master of wind and raging tide. We will trust you through the stormy night. We will trust you, God of mercy and light. We will trust you, oh Lord, we will trust you.
When lightning is flashing in the night, when ominous waves crash on the shore, I will